welcome to Relish Books. This is just a quick reading update, a couple of things that I've read over the past week. Both of them, again, just kind of short things that I don't feel like I need to make a whole video about, so I'm just doing one about both of them, even though they are about as different as possible. So the first one is Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. This is one of those things that's like a title that I knew, a name that I knew, an author that I recognized, but I really knew nothing about. I had in my mind that it was some sort of romance, I guess. I think the title just made me think that because it's not at all. But yeah, I'd heard that title before, and something about it, I don't know why, something about the title was attractive to me. But it's a play, and it is a story about absolutely nothing. That's actually what it's about. It's not like a story that's like, oh, this is just nothing. It's actually about nothing. It's kind of funny. I just reviewed The Sound and the Fury, and I complained about that book being about nothing. But the thing about that one is it's like all this stuff, but, it signifies nothing. Like the quote, full of sound and fury signifying nothing. So there's all this stuff that happens, but in the end, it ultimately means nothing. Whereas in Waiting for Godot, there's actually nothing happening. I would still argue that Waiting for Godot probably has more meaning than The Sound and the Fury, but so it's about these two you kind of feel like they're like tramp types, or hobos, maybe you'd say, back in the day, which is funny. Again, it feels like it's back in the day. I don't know what time period this is actually supposed to be, because the setting and the way that they talk and some of the circumstances made it feel very much to me like the way that they're just like in the road, and it kind of feels like the country, and you later hear that Godot is like a sheep farmer. It made it feel like ancient times. It really felt like ancient times to me, but it's not, because at one point it says that all the characters are wearing bowler hats. And they reference the Eiffel Tower, I think. Is it the Eiffel Tower or... Yeah, I think so. So it's not ancient times. I don't know the exact time period that it is, but that was confusing because I felt like, apart from those clues and a couple of the words that they use that are more modern, it really did feel like this ancient fable type almost story. But it's not, I guess, because they're wearing bowler hats. But these two guys are waiting for Godot. They don't even know at this point why they're waiting for him. They have an appointment for him. They have an appointment with him. And you get the feeling, you feel like they're out of work. Or they have nothing to do. Every day is just the same nothingness for them. And so I feel like they're hoping that Godot's going to give them a job. I think that's the idea, but it's like at this point they don't even know anymore. And as the story goes on, at first, it just feels like I said, it's about nothing. These two characters are literally talking about, they're racking their brains, trying to think of anything they can talk about or do or make up just to pass the time. The entire play is just two characters trying desperately to pass the time. They will start an argument about nothing, contradict each other, just a page of just back and forth, like, yes, it is, no, it's not, arguing just to fill the time. So it kind of made my brain feel like it was going to die from boredom, but that is the point, because the characters are dying from boredom. They're bored to the point of exhaustion. They don't know what to do. And this is the thing that I took away from it, that I did like about it. It's not pleasant. It's not fun to read. It's exceedingly boring and weird. It's supposed to be, it's like classified as like a tragic comedy. It's supposed to be funny. I didn't personally think it was funny, but I did see how, like, if this was kind of your sense of humor, I could see how people would think it was really funny. So yeah, I understand people maybe liking it for that reason, thinking that it's funny, but I didn't really think I didn't find it funny. But there were a couple moments that I did feel like were meaningful to me, I guess, on some level, because this feeling that you get, especially towards the end, where they're so bored, they're so sick of this life that they're living, of nothing, the same thing every day, of nothing. They're so sick of it, and they're desperate. They're to the point of desperation, but at the same time, they don't actually want to change. They talk about leaving, but they don't actually want to leave. They talk about they talk about ending their lives, but they don't actually want to. They talk about all these things, but they're so done that they don't have the motivation anymore to even do any of those things. They're miserable, but they're so miserable that they're past doing anything about it, past making any kind of a change, and they don't even really want to because they don't even have the energy to want it anymore. All they can do is just wait for Godot every day, who never comes. And by the end, you start to, as they're kind of like losing their minds, you also start to kind of question the reality of it. You're like, is this actually happening? Like, is Godot a real person? Are they real? I think as they start to question these things too, they're like, did yesterday actually happen? Did we wait? So there are things in there that seem to like concrete that they're there, that Godot's real, that they're waiting for him. But then there are other things where you just start to question reality, and I think it's that you're questioning reality along with the characters. So by the end, a couple things were interesting. Kind of that desperation of boredom, I think, that's not anywhere near on this level, of course, but that's something that I did identify with, something that I have felt at times. And it's kind of like, you could do something. There's plenty of things that you could do, but you're just lacking the motivation. So you're sitting there and you want desperately to do something, but at the same time, you don't want to do anything, and it's driving you crazy. So that's kind of what that whole play was like, but it was very weird, very, I don't know, not fun. I've never read anything that was so full of nothing, but it did make me think about some things. So there's that. The other thing, a very short little book, Goodbye, Mr. Chips. This is by James Hilton. This is a title that I'd seen on several book lists before. I kind of associated it like as a classic with, a bunch of other things. Heard about it for a while. I didn't really know, again, anything of what it was about. Opposite of Waiting for Godot, I feel like Goodbye, Mr. Chips, I feel like is kind of about everything, but it's too short. It's a really sweet story about a retired teacher, and he's just looking back over his life, over basically his whole life he gave to this school and to teaching and developing the minds of these boys and young men, and how he loved that and loved his life and all these things. And it touches briefly on so many things. It's in England, and it spans from like well before the First World War until quite a bit after, I believe, over the course of Mr. Chips's lifetime. But there are all these things, but nothing is really connected. It's just him as an old man thinking back over his life, and there's just moments from it. Nothing is, there aren't stories that are told through. It'll make a reference to like something funny that happened with one of the students, and you really want to hear about it. You want to know, but it just references it. There's like a part that talks about his marriage to his, beautiful young wife who then died shortly afterwards. And it's very sweet, but like it doesn't follow through. It's just there. And, it talks quite a bit about the war. And you feel, and the effect on the students and the way that Mr. Chips handled it and the way that he handled his relationships with the other teachers, all these things, like a very, very full lifetime of things. But all the important events are just referenced for a tiny moment. It's not enough. Like, it's a very sweet, like I said, a very sweet little book, but ultimately all it really did was make me want to read an actual book about this guy. I'm like, I want to read the books where his life was actually taking place. I wanted to read the full story of his romance. I wanted to read, which, like, how they met and got together, I feel like the way that was told was fine. Sometimes those short little snippets are really fun and they work really well like that. But I wanted a lot more development. You get a fairly good idea of what Mr. Chips is like as a person, but you did never have the chance to grow with him, to see his growth taking place, because the book starts at the end of his life already. He's already there, and he's just looking back and grabbing. You just get these snapshots. It's just a book full of brief snapshots of a very full, very interesting life. I feel like this could be a great full-length novel or multiple books even. I love the style and the feeling of it, of this, like a school setting, but in a very positive way, which is something that you don't read a ton of, especially like from the perspective of a teacher. If you read like school stories, they're usually a student, and having the perspective from this like teacher who passionately loved his job, passionately loved the school, and had all this pride in it, and that was just his whole life's work. He just stayed in this one little corner of the world for forever, but that was enough for him, and he was happy. I feel like that could make a great, definitely longer book, possibly even a series that I would really have loved to read. So all this book really did for me was make me want more, but I did like it. I loved the glimpse of what could have been, basically. It reminded me a book that does develop a longer story that's reminded me of this a lot, because it is also about like a schoolmaster who passionately loves his job, loves his students, and that is Seasoned Timber by Dorothy Canfield Fisher. Sorry, her name just escaped me for a second. And a really, really excellent book that, kind of has a similar feeling in a lot of ways, but a lot more development, a lot more to it. Definitely feels like a journey instead of just a glimpse. So those are two books that I read recently. Not my favorites ever, but I thought I'd talk about them since I read them, in case anybody else has heard of them, wanted to read them. That's kind of what I think about those two very different things, Waiting for Godot and Goodbye, Mr. Chips. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.